Good morning and welcome to the Dailies on Network Television International, where we keep you up to date with what is happening from our Nigerian newspaper. I am your host, Sela Elisha, and I have Rachel Tanzi with me in the studio. Good morning, Rachel.
Morning, Sela.
Happy weekend.
Thank you, and same to you.
Thank you so much. We're live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so you can do well to actually drop your comment and your contribution on any story that's of interest to you, and then we'll keep seeing how we can progress as a nation through the papers. And let's quickly run through the papers, Rachel, by starting with the Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, cash crunch worsens as bank runs out of old and new Naira notes. Rejections of old Naira notes, disobedience to the law. This is coming from Okere Dulo, and you can find the details on page 2. And the big story on Daily Sun, Black Day in Lagos, Oyo, Enugu, and Borno. Over 30 die in train auto accidents. Terrorists killed 26 in Borno. 1,332 terrorist families surrender. You can find the details on page 4 and 5. Appeal Court reserves judgment in PDP suit against Tinubu and Shetima. Motorists sleep at filling station as petrol scarcity worsens in Abuja. Black market hits 450 naira per litre. Group pushes for emergence of Kalu as Senate President. Another drum support for Northwest Barrow Jibrin. IPAC backs INEC shift of Guba poll. Abia candidates sign peace agreement. You can find the details on page 28. Anxiety as court OK's temporary voters card used for Guba election, ruling against Electoral Act. This is coming from INEC. You can find the details on page 6. And Sela, I would like us to talk a little bit about the INEC now, saying that we can use temporary voters card for election. And we remember this same question was asked before the presidential election. A lot of people were asking if they could, or if INEC would grant the permission for the temporary voters card to be used for the presidential polls, but then INEC said no, it wasn't going to happen that way. But now we are seeing them saying it's okay that we can use the temporary voters card for election. And I am wondering, why is INEC doing such a thing to Nigeria, in the sense that it should have been approved since the presidential election, because a lot of people, I want to believe, probably had access to their old and to the temporary voters card, but for some reason don't have the permanent one yet and wanted to vote with that, and they were not allowed to do that. And now we are seeing that you can vote with it now, and in a time like this, we said this yesterday and we cannot overemphasize it, that INEC they have the independence to do the right thing, but for some reason they are not doing it. They're not stating things clear to Nigerians. They're not giving the process as it is. If the temporary voters card could be used now, it means it should have been used during the presidential election. And then you wonder why is INEC twisting or playing around with the minds of Nigeria, while we know that the presidential election, I'm not saying the governorship election is not important, but a lot of people wanted to vote that couldn't vote due to this kind of situation. And now all of a sudden INEC is saying we can go, and I will keep saying that this kind of thing only makes Nigerians wonder if we can trust the electoral commission, or even if we can trust the democracy process in this country, because it keeps appearing to be failing us in so many ways. It keeps appearing to be putting us off balance. And way before the election, since last year, we kept on putting our trust on INEC, that they know what they're doing and they know that they will not disappoint us. But as time goes on and things keep unraveling themselves, you find out that INEC are not doing right by Nigerians. And I'm looking forward to where it will not happen, but obviously it's happening, and we're in 2023. We should be better than 2019, but it feels like nothing much has changed It's like the same process, a little bit of something new added to it, but then the same old process being done the same way repeatedly, and Nigerians just keep getting the same outcome.
You know, Rachel, when I was looking at the paper, even though it wasn't INEC that are saying that we could use, it's a court that is ruling that Nigerians can actually use the temporary voters card, because there we can see INEC is saying that it's against the Electoral Act. And if you should ask for my opinion about this, in as much as INEC is supposed to be an independent body, they're not totally independent as it should presently, because they depend on security agencies to help them persecute or arrest law offenders. They have to depend on also some sister bodies, the NCC for communication, 4G and 5G for the beavers, and also the IRF for transmission of results. They have to depend on mostly sister bodies, even when it comes to logistics and all of this, which of course everybody needs to do, you know, NNPC and all of that. But then there are so many interference in the electoral process, and I think that is where I am not really finding it comfortable, because if we say that INEC should do this, then I am expecting that they should be given the total independence that they need to actually carry out without, you know, meddling coming from other bodies. We've seen that till date we are still waiting for the CBN and also the president to actually come out and tell Nigerians, you can go ahead and use the old currency. Right now, just from the paper, we saw that what cash crunch has become worse.
Yeah.
Why? Because even the 200 naira old note is not available.
It's not.
The new notes are not available. Nigerians are stranded. People have to start trekking and all of that. Every day you're coming to work, you have to start calculating how much would I spend, what should I do, what should I not do. And these are part of the, you know, the things that I am just hoping that if the Supreme Court have said this, we're hoping that there will be no need for the presidency, because this is a different, we're talking about two different tiers of government, executive and the judiciary. These are two different, and there is separation of power. Where your power lies, that is maybe where my ends or where my starts. And this is the same thing here. We can see court is saying they can use the temporal cards, and INEC is saying no, you cannot, because it's against the Electoral Act. It's expected that you use your permanent voter's card to actually vote. Of course, you know, if we are to say we really want to add up our voice, of course there are a lot of Nigerians that really wanted to vote during the presidential election but were unable to, not because they didn't come out, but they were, it's either INEC did not print all the PVCs, or it's either your PVC was printed but you're in Jos and your PVC is in Kano or it's in Lagos, and logistics to bring it back is going to take a lot of time. And so INEC will tell you till after the elections before you can get your PVC. So with all of this, and we know that no PVC will be issued till after all this election is done, and that is when they apply to the central banks to get it back and forth and all of that. So maybe before some, you know, Nigerians will get their PVC, it will take a while. So maybe this is where the court is coming from. Let's consider those people that are in this situation. But regardless, if this is what the court is saying, and INEC is really not happy because it says it's against the law. Every time we have papers, we have laws, but then the implementation have always been a problem. We have something and then we act differently. So I'm looking forward to not just INEC as a commission, but we're looking at INEC because that is what is on the paper. But this is an eye-opener to almost every sector where we have rules, we have guidelines, we have constitution, and then we always go outside of it, forgetting that we already have something that guides us on what we should do and what we should not do. So I'm looking forward to when we say the independent electoral body, we should let them do what they are supposed to do, because they are independent. We should not meddle with them, give them the support they need, and then at the end of the day, that is the only way we'll be able to tell if they are competent or not. So right now, all I think we have to do is just keep our fingers crossed and see if INEC will go with what the court is saying, or they will go against what the court is saying.
Still on the Daily Sun newspaper, at the downside, Lagos attacks Ohaneze, asks Buhari international community to save voters. You can find the details on page 27. We have a picture story where we can see the train accident and the auto crash that killed over 30 people. And that's all the news on Daily Sun.
All right, let's take a look at the first newspaper. The bus train collision Sanwo-Olu suspend campaign as death toll rises to 6. This is really a sad one. Just yesterday we saw about some shops, about 20 shops that were burned down in
200.
Lagos as a result
Yeah.
of the spare parts, and we're, actually sympathizing. And here is another sad story still coming from, even though it's
Yeah.
not just Lagos, we had, even though that of Lagos was the train and the bus where we saw lots of people dying, and it's really a sad one.
It
But
is.
later on we'll read more detail about that story. The governorship polls court orders INEC to allow use of temporary voter cards. You can find more of that inside the first news. Appeal court reserves judgment in PDP's case against Tinubu, Shaitima, and APC. Federal government orders investigation bureau to probe the train crash. You can find more of that too. And the big story, Tinubu's victory, sacrosanct presidency, tells the PDP, Labour Party and others. Again, advises aggrieved opposition parties to go to court. Rules out annulment of election results, says Buhari refused to react to INEC's criticism by wishful thinkers. Tinubu sympathizes with Ikeja train crash victims. Dogara endorses APC Sadiq Abubakar for Bauchi Guba polls. How troops fall terrorist talks attempt to disrupt polls coming from the defense headquarters. Court remands ex-Imo deputy governor in prison. And downside of the paper, Biafra Supreme Court obstructing justice for Nnamdi Kanu. This is coming from the IPOB. And the ex-Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko, yet to get 2.5 million naira entitlement 9 months after leaving the office. We have to follow up that story. If you're interested, check more inside the paper. Kaduna government plotting to arrest 80 PDP members. McCarthy cries out. So you can grab the first news and read more detail of any story that is of interest to you.
On the Matrix newspaper, reaction as court orders INEC to allow use of temporary voters card. Music streaming platform Spotify pays $40 billion in royalties to music industry. You can find the details on page 18. And on Europa League, Man United bounced back to beat Betis 4-1. Tinubu's victory stands presidency tells PDP and Labour Party, asks Nigerians in diaspora to support Tinubu's government. And the big story on the Matrix newspaper, Nigerians groan in hardship over naira scarcity, rejection of all notes. The writer says filling stations, market, transporters await signal from Buhari and CBN. President's indifference, violation of Supreme Court judgment, shameful, coming from SAN. At the downside of the paper, still on naira scarcity, disobeying Supreme Court order, treasonable felony, says lawyer. Still on election, varsity shifts resumption date to March 21st. Wike vows to chase Atiku, Ayu and others from PDP. And still on the train accident, emergency call for blood donation as 3 die, 84 injured victims land in Lasud, Badaga General Hospital. You can find the details on page 6, and we have a picture story that shows the deadly collision between train and BRT bus at Ikeja yesterday, leaving 6 people dead and several injured. And that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
Still on the Lagos train bus crash, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. NLC Lasima blamed the driver as federal government orders probe. Bus driver reckless, ignores safety warning by railway staff. This is coming from officials. 6 kill, families donate blood as 29 critically injured battle for survival. Lagos suspend political campaigns. Buhari, Tinubu, and Atiku and others are mourning. Let's read a little detail of that. The Lagos State Emergency Management Agency and the Nigerian Railway Corporation have blamed the driver of a Lagos State government staff bus for a fatal train accident which killed 6 people and injured 96 in the PWD area of the state on Thursday. The tragic struck in Lagos a few minutes before 8 a.m. in a hurry to cross the train. Said the bus failed to obey the instruction of the corporation officials as he overtook other vehicles waiting for the train to pass. The federal government has ordered an investigation into the accident. The ill-fated bus with registration number 04848 LA was navigating its way to connect the government residential area Ikeja, en route to the state secretariat Elusa, when it collided with the train at the BWD rail crossing. The bus was said to be coming from Osulo, while the train was heading to Ido from Ojoko, Ogun State. You can find more of that story. And Rachel, I took my time to read this because it's really sad. If it's actually true that the bus driver ignored the warning sign, then this is very reckless and careless of him. Right now, we have about 6 patients, about 6 people that are dead. We have several others that are injured. Some are battling for their life. You can see that they're even calling for blood donations because, of course, the hospital is going to run out of blood to save some people. I will know that there are some patients that either their blood group is very hard to come by. So you have to even look for donors that will be able to get that, especially if they don't have family members that are close by to actually donate this blood. And I'm bringing this to, so for us to discuss this because this is just one out of many other careless drivers that you're always in a rush, in a hurry to catch up, and then at the end of the day you put the life of other passengers at risk. Just imagine if he was a little bit patient and wait for the train to actually finish moving before actually using the road. We wouldn't be having this situation right here. And it's really, really sad because we have lots of careless drivers. So I just hope that this will be an eye-opener for drivers who are always in a rush to catch up, maybe because you want to go drop this one. This is not even this is not even a commercial bus. We're talking about the government, Lagos state government. So definitely you're dropping with the people. From the picture story you could see this is really, really a very sad one. So imagine the people that died on it, and I don't know how they will actually survive, but I'm just hoping that for those who are really, really injured, they will get to survive all of these, and then it will serve as an eye-opener for drivers to be careful. And whatever the situation it is, let us learn to please take it easy. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of 5 or 10 minutes and you get there. It's better you get there late than late. We've heard this over and over and over, and we cannot overemphasize it. So while we are still sympathizing with those who lost money in the spare part shop, we're still going to be talking about human. So it's really a lot for Lagos state and other states that have been affected. But I just hope that at the end of the day we'll just draw lessons from this. It's not all about discussing it and then we drop it, but what are the lessons we are learning individually and also collectively as a nation from this?
My mom will say driving is all about patience, that everything happens in seconds and split seconds, that the person over speeding will probably just get there 2 minutes earlier than you, but you will always reach your destination. On a more serious note, Sele, this man is a criminal and he needs to be persecuted. It's only in Nigeria that I literally see drunk drivers going scot-free. It's only in Nigeria that I see careless drivers.
They don't go scot-free,
driving. No, Sele, they do, because
of the law.
If they did, we would not have these more cases again. I've seen situations whereby there's just compensation and it's not followed due process concerning this person going to the court, being persecuted and giving a sentence. I've seen many cases like that where these people just pay compensations even to the police, to the victims, and okay, you just fix my car and go. But once there is an investigation and you're a drunk driver and this accident is as a result of your drunkenness, one, you're supposed to be persecuted in the court of law, not just a bill in the police station, not just you compensating whoever. You're supposed to be persecuted because that's a criminal offense. Now, secondly, we have witnesses saying that this man were cautioned by the passengers in the car not to, because this is what the headlines are having, that he was being cautioned by the passengers in the car, but he insisted not to be patient. Automatically, this man, I hope he's presently sitting down in a jail and waiting for when his day in court and when he will be persecuted and his sentence, because this is how it's supposed to be. There are a lot of criminal offenses that are not taken criminally seriously in this country, and this is one of them, and it's about time we start taking it. We're looking forward to seeing court case of drunk drivers and the court giving a verdict, ruling, sentencing them to months in prison, granting them bail, giving them parole, giving them probation, just making sure that they serve one term or another, so that such carelessness will stop happening on our roads, so that you will really start having patience. If you don't even have it, go and learn how to be patient on the road, because it's just a matter of seconds. You can't compensate these lives that have been gone now. Maybe those in the hospital can get healed, but someone in this bus was on his way to go and find their means of livelihood for their family, and they are no more. Someone had plans for a better tomorrow. You can't compensate things like this. Is not enough for whoever this driver was that has caused this problem to just be given something as easy as just to compensate or something like that. This is a serious crime that should be persecuted in the court, by justice, by the law, and all of that. And I'm looking forward to that being done concerning this.
Of course, Rachel. Still on the Punch newspaper, the stories: INEC fall judgment permitting temporary voter cards for polls. You can find that on page 8. NCAA probes Lushafa over alleged passengers maltreatment. You can find more also on page 20. On visa revocation, court bar CEO from running supplet. And we have on roadblock, victims tackle lawless soldier over extortion and harassment. You can find that on page 4 and 5. The picture story. Still, we have the bus and the train during the accident, and then by the side we can see patient being rushed to the hospital and being attended to, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Daily Independent, death toll in Lagos train bus crash rises to 8. Sanwo-Olu others flag flown at half-mast, declares 3-day mourning in Lagos. NSIB mobilizes to site begins and probe into collision. Ohanaeze condemns attack in Southeasterners in Lagos. PDP describes burning of Lagos auto part market as barbaric. And the big story on Daily Independent: court OK's use of temporary voters card for March 18 polls. Troops arrest terrorist commander, wife, children, 167 others. Kill over 27 terrorists in 2 weeks. 6 Benue Council area under simultaneous attacks. This is coming from Algon. Court orders INEC to list Udofia Kwaibom APC Guber candidate. ISWAP terrorists killed 35 IDB fishermen in Borno. You can find the details on page 29. Seplat refutes allegation against its CEO Roger Brown. The details can be found on page 6. Hold Yakubu not Buhari liable if crisis erupts over polls. This is coming from CNPP. At the downside of the paper, 1 week to Guba polls, Wike OK's promotion of civil servants. The details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
On the Friday Leadership newspaper, the big story say polls postponement, governors re-strategize, woe voters with jobs and promotions. The writer say tough race expected in Lagos, Delta, Kano, Kaduna, Gombe, Nasarawa, and Katsina. We respect INEC's decision to postpone the polls coming from the APC. And we have what is trending that says Army recovers 1,671 PVCs from an apartment in Lagos State. And from numbers, 339 million liters of fuel distributed to 63 depots coming from the NNPCL. And we hope that that will be able to, handle the issue of the queues we're having that have resurfaced in Abuja and other parts of the country. Bajabia Amida top list of contenders for Tinubu's chief of staff. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, is a leading candidate for the post of Chief of Staff to President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the next administration. Gbajabiamila was conspicuously missing at the International Conference Center, Abuja, on Wednesday. So you can read more of that story on page 7. 6 die in Lagos train accident. Sanwo-Olu declare 3 days of mourning. You can find that on page 7. Woman jailed 24 years for $298,000, 48 million naira property fraud. You can find that on page 6. Troops arrest 35 terrorists, kill 21. And we have the last story on the paper. Crisis in IPOP camp. Kanu seeks to replace senior lawyer. That you can find on page 9. And that's all on the Friday leadership.
On the Guardian newspaper, Black Thursday, 21 die in road crashes in Lagos and Enugu. Pilot training fee hit 20 million naira as NCAT IAC increased tuitions. Governorship election and lesson of the postponement. And the big story, poll shift may cost Nigeria more than $2.23 billion suffered in 2020 and 2019. The writer says postponement compounds naira fraud scarcity. This is coming from SMB. And from the presidency, why Buhari is quiet over allegations of irregularities against INEC. March 18 polls excuses no longer acceptable, coming from IPAC cautioning INEC. And from Abure, INEC has cruded our confidence. Protect integrity of data from Beavers, ABC tells INEC. Court order commission to allow 2 Nigerians vote without PVC. Despite reported positive trend, palm oil industry is still struggling. At the downside of the paper, 1 week after Supreme Court ruling, CBN silence stocks confusion. And that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
Yeah, this really, very sad looking at our industry, the palm oil, and this is one out of many other industries that have been crying out for help coming from the federal government. And if only we do the right thing to, boost more money into all of this, cash crops that we have in the country, because palm oil is definitely one of those cash crops we have. Are we going to look at cocoa? Are we going to look at coconut? Are we going to be looking at, other cash crops, cashew nuts? I think last year we saw where the government is looking at what we can do with cashew nuts and all of that. And this is really a sector that we've neglected. I think it was last year we saw when textile industry were complaining too. Rubber have not been given attention to. Imagine what we can use rubber for if only we give it the right attention. I mean, we'll stop even thinking about what to import outside the country, looking at the fact that presently when it comes to rice production, we are the highest in West Africa. And this should really make us that it will even turn in the welfare of Nigerians as a whole. So I'm just looking forward to what the government is going to do. They're saying despite positive, reports, we're still seeing palm oil industry still struggling. So we need to check, why are they still struggling? What is the problem? Is it insecurity? Are we looking at manpower because we don't have enough mechanization to actually do all of this? Even though I know this palm oil, there are very few machines that can help you extract this oil and all of the procedure involved in it. So we just hope that the government will give this sector and other, industry attention so we can be able to realize more into our own GDP in the country.
Actually, I'm going to say this with a mixed feeling of pride and sadness that Nigeria is a country that has everything it takes to be financially stable, to be economically stable, to thrive in every level. When we sit down, and as you're just mentioning, this is but the few of the resources we have. We're talking about things that we plant. This is but a few. We're not even talking about the solid minerals we have. We're not talking about the things that we're yet to discover. We're not even talking about the fact that we are now realizing, or we now know, that it's not only in the Niger Delta we have oil, but we also have it down here at the north. And the more you think about these things, you're happy in your mind because you're seeing yourself living in a country that has everything it takes to be better. And then the prayer for us, the sad part is that we're not there yet, in as much as we should have been. But I keep saying it's a process, and we'll just keep praying that God will help us, that all of these sectors struggling where they shouldn't be should stop struggling, that truly we'll wake up, that we have countless and numerous things that we export to many countries, that we will just be in a position where not only is our trade balance, but we are having a surplus rather than even a deficit or just being balanced, but that is more on the surplus level. We're looking forward to that kind of Nigeria, and it's possible.
Of course, we'll get it right,
Yes,
Richard. It's just a matter of time.
it
We will
is.
get it right. Let's take a look at the New Telegraph newspaper. But before we go further, I think we are ripe for a break at this moment. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue with the newspaper review. Please do not go anywhere. I'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, the program is the Dailies on Echo Television International. We've been looking at various stories that have been making the head on our papers. We've seen that the court have ordered INEC to allow the use of temporary voters card for the March 18 gubernatorial and State House of Assembly election. And we've also seen that presently we have some cases in Lagos where about 8 persons lost their life and several others are injured as a result of a collision between a bus and a train. These and many other stories are what we have been looking at the paper. I am Sarah Elisha Dasham, and I still have Rachel Tanzi here with me in the studio. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
Yeah, please do remember we're live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can drop your comment and your contribution on any story that is of interest to you, and then we'll tend to go through it and see how we can resolve and also bring up development and growth in our country. Let's continue with the newspaper review, and let's take a look at the New Telegraph newspaper. Nigerian digital music media in a race for 3.2 trillion naira investment. I think this is a sector that we've not given so much, so we can see that about this money that will be keyed into that investment. So you can read more of that on the front page and also on page 3 of the New Telegraph newspaper. Nigerian carriers to comply with the new EU air shipment rules. That also can be found on page 2. Coming from the NBS, Nigeria's total trade hit 11.7 trillion naira in the fourth quarter of 2022, with crude oil accounts for 77.24%. This is coming from experts. You can read more of that on page 3. And on Naira redesign, CBN roll out guidelines for open banking. You can find more on page 4 and 29. And on poll shift, avoid mistakes, Maso Kalu charges INEC correct the gray areas during window of adjustment, coming from the APC telling INEC. And I said this yesterday during Nigerian Now, and I'll say this again, that with this period that INEC have been given to actually reconfigure the beavers and also to have all they need to do logistic, sending the beavers to the various part of the country where election will be holding, about 28 states that will be having the gubernatorial election. I just hope that all of this, just like we are having the APC telling the INEC, that all of those gray areas where their attention has been drawn, they should please take their time and check all of these. Are we talking about technical hitches? We want them to rectify that when I'm done voting and the counting start, I can quickly observe that and monitor it through the result viewing portal, because that is what it is used for.
Yes.
Not like after, it's just this week we're seeing that upload 92%. I think last week was 80.
Eight, yeah.
This week is 92. We're yet to know if it's 100%, and this is not supposed to be. The results
not.
supposed to have been there long before now, and I think this is a setback on INEC, and they need to look into that. Are we also going to look at arrival of INEC officials to the various rec, to the various polling unit, where you're supposed to be there at 8:30 and some are arriving as late as 3, and then we just sorry, and then people after waiting, some people were de-enfranchised because at the end of the day they could not vote, or their name was not there, or the beavers were not functioning. And these are some of the reports we got from people who were actually that encounter all of these hitches, or some people that don't even know how to use the beavers totally. So this actually showed that there's a lapse in the part of INEC. So we hope that this time that they have is not just about reconfiguring the beavers, but also rectify what is the problem. We saw in the papers about 200. Okay, let's take this call.
Okay.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning. Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, please go on. We are with you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Go on with your contribution.
Yeah,
Can you turn down the volume of your TV set? I think you're listening to TV.
Okay, can you hear you now?
Yes, we can. Go on.
All right, I think we'll just go on. You can call us back, please, and do remember for our callers to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us, or move totally away so we can actually have a very good and smooth communication here in the studio. Thank you so much. So, Rachel, I just hope that INEC will do the expected at the end of the day. Still on New Telegraph newspaper on terrorism, Kanu moves to overrule legacy, with the rider threatening to withdraw case file over continued detention. You can find that on page 8 and 29. The big story on Guber and State Assembly court order INEC to allow temporary voter card for March 18 polls. Says the law under section 47 provide for voters card, but no option of the 1999 Constitution unless can be used for those who are good in interpreting the Constitution. Okay, we have another call. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning to you. Good morning to you. I'm Tito.
Morning.
I'm calling from Monica.
Please go on, we're with you.
Okay, my issue is on the when court gives an order. Court gives an order for new Naira and old Naira notes. And yet, I don't know what the CBN and the presidency is still doing for them to address people so that the money would be used. It's a little problem we have. That when sort of competent jurisdiction that will give an order and you are still waiting. For a very long time, we know what not in this hand of new Naira and old Naira issue. We have suffered. You have put people to so many suffering. People have money in their account, but they can't see it. They can't access their account. And now the Supreme Court of the Federation has given an order, and yet I don't know. Mr. President should know that we are not in military regime. This is democracy, and the duty of democracy is something like this. If you do not respect cause of competence, and another thing is the issue of INEC. INEC, you don't need a prophet to tell INEC that you should be using the temporary PVC, because the same content in temporary PVC that is in the permanent one. You can use the permanent one and vote, and another person will use the temporary one and vote. It's the same person. You should give people the concept, the opportunity to exchange their franchise. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you so much, sir, for that. And we hope that with the issue of the Naira being scarce and also INEC, the relevant authorities and agencies, so please take this into cognizance. And we're still on the New Telegraph newspaper, Black Thursday, 6 die as train collides with staff bus. You can find that on page 5, 6, 7, and 8. Alleged racism, court sack, Seplet CEO. You can find more too on page 6 and 8. Don't deny the Southeast Senate presidency. Group urges the APC as campaign for democracy rally support for the Northern election, says the MDCN. Well, with the issue of the JAPA we've been seeing coming from, more of that on page 2. Coming from the defense headquarters, troops recover 83 AK-47 and other rifles in 2 weeks. Says 1,332 suspected terrorists, family members surrendered in the northeast. Boko Haram kills 26 and injure 9 in Borno. You can find more on page 3, 6, and 8. And we have, unless court rules otherwise, Tinubu's victory stands. Presidency replies the PDP and the Labour Party. Rules out repeat of June 12, 1993 polls annulment. Coalition rejects poll result, calls on INEC chair to resign as 18 local observers give credence to the polls and don't disappoint Nigerians, NIDO tells the judiciary. Downside, we have a study on page 26, so you can do well, get the paper and read more detail of any story that's of interest to you.
On Nigerian News Direct, 3 years of Jamal's maritime tripod agenda. Sanwo-Olu visits trained victims in hospitals, declared 3 days mourning. NCDMB, Bank of Industry, launched $50 million fund for oil industry manufacturing. And the big story, alleged electoral fraud. Presidency breaks silence, justifies Tinubu's victory. Says no going back on outcome, no case of annulment. June 12, 1993 won't repeat itself. Says allegations against INEC vile and substantial. And then, as court orders commission to allow use of temporary voters card for forthcoming election, Afenifere joins, knocks on INEC, says Obi won election. You can find all the details on page 23. NCC spotlights renewable energy on World Consumer Rights Day. Ogun East League of Imams Alphas endorses Abiodun for second term. Still on International Women's Day, women play crucial roles in Dangote Group's success story, coming from Fatima Aliko Dangote. We have a Femi Adesina's column which you can find on the back page of the paper, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On this day newspaper, court orders INEC to allow the use of the temporary voters card in March 18 polls. Commission vows to appeal the order. IRF glitches have nothing to do with redeployment of the ex-ICT director, electoral body clarifies. And we have IPAC backs post postponement, urges the commission to avoid repeat of Beaver's failure. You can read more on page 5. Buhari, Atiku, Tinubu, Bajabiamila, Sanwo-Olu, Oyebaje, others mourn as train accident claims 6 lives. We can find more on page 9. Coming from Tinubu, Obi's U.S. agent impersonating NADECO leadership to discredit my free mandate. Says using his platform of struggle against him is fraudulent, insulting, and laughable. Declares he staked all, I take that story again, declares he staked all for Nigeria when Labour Party presidential candidate was either hobnobbing with military or nowhere to be found. You can find more on page 5. The big story, despite global outcry, Buhari defends Tinubu's victory, says he has no plan to annul the 2023 presidential polls. And we have a picture story too, which you can take a good look at. And also downside, we have Amechi rallies voters for coal visit traders and Likeha Mechanic Village. You can find more of that on page 16. And that's all on this day newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, 6 die, 70 injured in train. Lagos government staff bus collision. Sanwo-Olu declares 3 days mourning, calls for blood donation. Driver undergoes psychiatric drug test, remanded in custody. We warned driver before he crossed the rail line, victims narrate ordeal. Federal government calls for investigation. Buhari, Tinubu, Gbajabiamila, governors mourn. 10 die in Oyo Ogbomosho road accident. Court orders INEC to allow 2 voters to use temporary voter card in March 18 poll. NADECO has no branch in USA coming from Opadokun. Tax Tinubu on ensuring federal constitutional governance. You can find the details on page 28. 1 killed, 15 injured as APC PTP supporters clash in Bauchi. The details can be found on page 28. And we have a picture story showing victims in the hospital and emergency hospitals made by the government to treat these victims. And we have a column that I'd like to read concerning vote. It says, in Oyo State, 1 opposition politician gave a community a transformer. He lost an election and removed the transformer. Now he wants to be governor. Reject him, reject his party. And I'd like to say this happened to be sad and funny in a lot of ways, because I know on the show here we've been making mention of how when you've given your agenda as a candidate on what you want to do for Nigeria, we said this even before the election, that whether you emerge as winner or not, as a true patriotic Nigeria, it is your responsibility. Okay.
You should allow Tinubu to defend himself. Yes, because it's he who makes money, know what he gets himself before making that money. For you to say that you are defending that man, that means it is Tinubu that Nigeria will be questioned. How do you got to be the president of this country, not you? Buhari has done his own in 2015. We don't know how he came into power, but what we know, he succeeded. Then nobody defends him. Then allow the person in democracy for giving us impression that what Obi and Atiku is saying is 100% truth. Yes, you should stay aside that whoever won this election, either through court or whichever way, you'll be handing over power to him. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And so as I was saying, that even if you won or not, you're supposed to join your heads together and then make Nigeria great, meaning in your position and your capacity, you should be able to contribute to the system. And we're seeing whereby a politician during their campaign put in a transformer, and because he lost the election, took it away. You're automatically now telling this community that is because you wanted their vote, but not because you truly wanted their growth, that you put this transformer. And I want to believe that there's been some kind of evolution this 2023 election, where we didn't see politicians campaigning the usual way they did, because now Nigerians eyes have opened and we're looking for credibility, capacity, that they have served the country, and these are the kind of leaders we want. So we are looking forward to more of that. We have more elections to happen in Nigeria, and we're looking forward to where you are a true patriotic Nigeria and wouldn't do a thing to a community because you want their vote, but because you truly want to see that growth happening in a community.
Okay, just like you said, so we look forward to Nigerians are smarter than all of these campaigns and all of these manifestos that might seem sweet to the ears. We saw in the papers where, because governors or people who are aspiring to be governors want to actually get the vote of their, their indigents of their various states. And so they tend to say you want to hold them with jobs, opportunities, and saying I will do this, I will do that. But Nigerians know better than this. That's why we always we always make emphasis on go back to track records, and then you know better. So for Markande and making that, it's just a way of selling himself on the paper, and then they know better. But I believe that the people of Oyo State know better and what they want as as a state. Let's take a look at the Nature News quickly. Fake story: climate financing emulate Nigerian green bond, Buhari tells the LDCs. And then we have NCDMB, Bank of Industry, launch 50 million US dollars forum, calls for innovative finance for the SDGs in Africa. You can find that on page 9. And we have climate change scientists give new idea for suck up CO2 from air. So you have to read more of that. We have why climate action needs women, still in relation to the International Women's Day. You can find more of that story inside, and this is coming from the United Nations FCCC. Downside of the paper, we also have another story that is of good interest for those who want to know more about sport players plead with former manager to return. This is for our sport lovers, so you can find that story on page 21. We have the picture story where we can see the president at the UN conference on LDCs in Qatar on Tuesday. That was before coming back to the country for the gubernatorial election. And that's all on Nature News and how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this. Thank you to the crew members and also to our callers that called in to actually air their views to on some stories of interest. Until we come here again, to have a blessed weekend.